What do you just make up this whole Buffalo Bills situation going on right now? Hello, welcome back to Football 301. I'm your host, Nate Tice. Great show for you today as we talk about, some teams that are in the dirt, at least for the 2025 NFL season. We're doing a postmortem today for the 4 teams that lost in the division round and a few other teams that lost in the round before. Want to touch on these teams. We focus on the winning teams, as my co-host today likes to bring up sometimes. That's a little more fun when you talk about the losing teams, especially when one of those losing teams also moves on from a head coach. So there'll be plenty to talk about with those 4 teams. But like I said, my co-host today, joining me every Tuesday, Mr. Matt Harmon. Good to see you. How's everything going? It's been a while. Been a whole 48 hours since I've seen you. How you doing?
I know. Yeah, we're not quite on the 3-day streak like we were last week, but it's good to talk to you. I'm excited about this topic today because, this is sort of, like I said, I've made this my beat here at Yahoo the last few years, is talking about the losing teams. And these 4 that we're going to get into today are very interesting, but it's a busy time in the NFL. It's a busy time for all of us. I've started charting draft prospects, so I'm kind of
who you watch
earlier than ever, bro.
Who you watch?
I've watched.
I'm excited to start picking your brain a little bit.
I've watched the top 5-ish guys, kind of what I've seen around there. So I've watched Tyson, I've watched Lemon, I've watched Tate, I've watched Conception, and I've watched Boston. So I've got 3 games banked on all those guys.
Who's your first flavor? Is it Tyson? I feel like Tyson's your guy. Maybe. Yeah, Tyson?
No,
Tyson?
not really.
Maybe
I like
Lemon.
I like KC, Conception, and Lemon, and Tate. I really like Tate too. Yeah, I've only seen 2 games of Tyson, but I really like those 3 guys so far. Very different.
No,
but I'm still too early to be giving official takes into a microphone here. But I dig what I've seen so far about all these guys. I don't know if there's any tier 1 prospect just yet. Maybe I'm still searching there, but really good, interesting group. I got a very all different types of flavors. Cool. I think with this class too, which is nice.
Yeah, you got the big guy in Boston. You got the twitchy guy in Tyson, who's kind of does a little bit of everything. Yeah, Lemon is kind of a slot, but he does some outside stuff too, but his ball skills are unreal. Concepcion is explosive. Yeah, it's explosive. So explosive.
He was the guy that surprised me the most, just because
more real than you would think, right?
About him. Yeah, I haven't heard as much about him, except producer Colin over on the fantasy show is a Texas A&M fan, so he's been yapping about him to me. You got to look at this guy. You got to look at this guy. And I normally want to zig when Colin is zagging in terms of takes there, but I think he was right to put me on this one. I really like that player.
I know, between him and our guy Ryan Flournoy, producer Collins we had a few that we had to talk about this year. No, it's a
he
fun.
He spent too much time around me. He knows what I like at wide receivers, clearly. So
I know that's what's been fun. Now it's obviously which one. I mean, Tate's probably gonna end up my receiver one. I don't know. I gotta really look next few. I still got to kind of revisit him a couple weeks. Maybe watch the last couple of games. But Tate has kind of been leaning towards my receiver one. But it's everyone's of course you like Denzel Boston. It's yeah, of course I do. It's it's the easiest guy that Nate Tice is going to like ever.
Tate reminds me so much of Calvin Ridley, but pre hiatus from the NFL, Calvin Ridley.
Yeah.
So when I make that player comparison, don't think about the last few years, think about the first few years, which were pretty cool.
The good one. What you want to image, the mental image of Calvin Ridley. But yeah, exactly. Before he lost his mind, forgot to every part of the route tree, forgot how to catch, all those types of things. But it's going to be fun. I know draft cycle is about to start. Trust us. We got the All-Star games coming up as well. We got the Senior Bowl. We got the East-West Shrine game at the Star. So that'll be plenty of our discussions over the next couple of weeks. But we're going to first start, before we get into the postmortem, some news in the NFL, because we have 10 openings. I feel like we're going to have steady news every Tuesday show for the next few weeks. But we're going to start with some hirings. We got coordinator hirings. We got head coach hirings. We'll start with the Titans hiring 49ers defensive coordinator, the second time, Robert Saleh, as head coach. And kind of an upset, because I think you and I have been resigned that this was Matt Nagy's position. And I think it was an open secret that it was Matt Nagy's job to lose. He was the first guy they interviewed of 30 guys. Your handy dandy chart that you made, Excel chart that you made, outlined that beautifully. But no, Robert Saleh gets hired. Again, defensive coordinator. I think the offensive coordinator will be the most interesting part of this, as it usually is, because of who they have at quarterback in Cam Ward. But I really like this fit with Jeffrey Simmons. Maybe Tavondre Sweat. We'll see what his long-term prognosis is. But also just like, he's going to bring, I think, some heat to this team and really some motivation to this team. And he's also used to having a crazy owner. So he's got that going for him, which is nice. But Matt, when you saw this hire, what was your first reaction? What do you think about it?
My first reaction was kind of, Robert, you want to do this? You want to take this job after listen, maybe it ends up being a great job, and I think it's attractive because Cam Ward's the number 1 overall pick, and maybe you have more of like a settled quarterback situation than whatever you ever had in New York. But at the same time, I kind of thought he'd be maybe a little bit more choosy than this, because he seemed like a really hot candidate that people were excited about, and I do think he's I think he's a good leader. I think there's a proof of concept that he can get more out of his talent. I think this Tennessee defense has always kind of punched above its weight. It's always been a little bit of an underrated defense, and they're going to be really fun up front. I'm excited to see that there. My off the cuff, like, first reaction was, man, I thought he might be a little bit more choosy than this, because I don't trust the Titans right now. I think that's fair. If I was a Titans fan, I absolutely would not trust the Titans. I want to see like a multi-year proof of concept, some patience here that you're going to be able to keep a head coach and a GM for multiple years and kind of let this thing play out. So maybe that was obviously I'm sure that's part of the assurance that he got when interviewing for the job, but actions speak louder than words. So I do think it's a good hire for them. I like Saleh a lot. I'm certainly going to be interested to see who he brings in as offensive coordinator. Can he get Mike McDaniel to this job if McDaniel doesn't get a head coaching job or an OC job elsewhere? That's obviously key. But yeah, I'm a little I was just a little surprised that Saleh wasn't more choosy.
Yeah, and especially because Saleh had built up a lot of goodwill this year, and everyone's like, oh, he did a great coaching job. The defense was bad, but they had all these injuries. And it felt more like next year was the really build back his stock as a coach, and then he gets a juicier job. I have conflicted feelings on Saleh. Like, there's parts of him I really respect, like as far as motivating, as far as every guy. I mean, those Jets teams played so hard, and it cannot be overstated enough. Like, that's all the good signs of good coaches when they have lesser talent or, maybe just a team that's going to be 500 or below. And the fact that they played hard at the end of the year, that's got to account for something. But also scheme wise, he's always kind of been more, he's kind of simplistic, and kind of talked about that with the 49ers in the last few weeks. Like, yeah, they play sound and everything, but it's like, I kind of want you got to understand what your personnel is. Like, you're not generating pressure. I wanted to see a little bit more. That's me nitpicking as something what I prefer to see out of my coaches. Maybe you show that you can implement new ideas on the fly, because you want to win these games, as opposed to go, this is my system and this is what we know. That's, again, nitpicking. I think more than anything, it's who they hire on offense, because I do think Cam Ward's a franchise guy. And by franchise guy, again, I'm not saying he's one of the dudes, one of the top 4, top 5 guys locked in, but tier 2 he can get to. And I think pretty soon he can get to that kind of tier 3. And what I consider tier 3 is kind of like quarterback 13 to quarterback 18 range, somewhere around there. My friend Seth Galena had from PFF had a funny line. He goes, the problem right now is there's 16 top 12 quarterbacks. And I just love that line. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's too many. Whenever we say top 10 and everything, it's like, I'm not trying to slight anybody, because it's more just like a term we just use. Top 10, top 5 guy.
Top 10 is like an arbitrary, clickable list. Everybody gets it. But there's always more than that. And I feel like anytime we did a top 10 anything during the off season, it was, well, my tier kind of ends at 14 or something like that, as opposed to like a hard cutoff at 10. But you got to get the social media rage bait graphics going with top 10, and whoever you had at 11 doesn't really matter. You hate number 11 and you love number 10.
Got to do the list. It has to be 10. 11 means you suck. 10, if you don't make 10, that means, now we're getting into super nerd Nate. I like my board games, and I like my board game lists. And one of the sites that I listen to on YouTube is these older guys that review board games. It's called Dice Tower. They did their top 100, and they made these jokes about that, going like, well, now it's off the 100, so it sucks now. Like, now it's the worst game that's ever existed. But, like, they're saying the same thing. It's 101, so that means it sucks. It's terrible now. This one dropped from 52 to 58. It's the worst game ever. They just kind of kept making those jokes. That's kind of how I feel back when we made lists. But anyways, back to Robert Saleh and Cam Ward. Everything with Cam Ward's the franchise. And what I'm saying, though, is he's a guy. It's not like, oh, is there still questions? I saw enough signs that it's like, yes, you can build this. You can have some faith in going, like, we give this guy, we want to make the offense more about him. And more about like lifting him up and what he can bring to the table. They don't have a ton of free agents. Kind of see that now on the YouTube page, which I like. But I do think I'm so curious who he can get as OC, because he's going to get a Shanahan guy. That's his tree. You know, that's who, when he went to the Jets, he hired Mike LaFleur, who's now with the Rams and not calling plays. And that's who I would be like, oh, who he's going to bring in now. But Mike LaFleur might be like, I don't want to do that again.
No, you kind of got scapegoated, I think.
Yeah. Oh my God, hard. And he did nothing really wrong. It turns out that Zach Wilson is not a play. I did too.
Right.
I know. That's who I think they go with. Because, okay, yeah, he's the OC with the Rams, but now we're going to play calling duties. And that's a big deal. People want play calling duties. That's why Matt LaFleur left the Rams to be the Titans OC in the first place, was he wasn't the play caller under Sean McVay. But no, I that's the guy that kind of comes to mind for me. When he was with the Jets, they were saddled with Zach Wilson and then Aaron Rodgers sabotaging the whole thing. So it's kind of like, I want to see him with a decent quarterback, and that's what I think Cam Ward can be. I think he could be a good starter. So Clay Kubiak's the other name, 49ers OC right now, not calling plays, of course, with Kyle Shanahan. But Kyle Shanahan basically said, over my dead body, like, I'm going to let him leave. So we'll see about that.
I would, if I was Shanahan, I would do that too. I mean, I'm sick of my staff getting raided. I'd put my foot down at some point. Like, enough already. Leave me one of the Kubiaks. You can take all 10 other of them, but leave me one of them. Bobby Slowick may be another name to throw out there. I think Slowick actually is a guy that maybe was, and myself included, people were a little too hard on him as the Texans offensive coordinator. They clearly had some problems there that they needed to clean up, and I always said they just kind of ran the Shanahan greatest hits, but that's what we're kind of looking for here anyway, someone off that Shanahan tree. And I mean, he was part of McDaniel's staff in Miami, and obviously we're going to talk about who got hired there pretty recently. So
yeah. So I think we're kind of know what the page he's going to look at there, and I like that. Cam Ward has shown to me that he can be more in that system, maybe more than I even gave him credit for. I think I just kind of lacked a little imagination about what he could be. And I think he could fit in a lot of different offenses. I'm just assuming that this will be, and I think it'll be a good fit for him. He throws well on the move. He whips the ball over the middle. Shanahan coaches, what they look for is a guy that has a quick throwing motion. That is the number one kind of like trait they look for. Just watch Purdy and Mac Jones throw, watch Sam Darnold throw. That's kind of what that violent, quick throwing. And Cam Ward's got the funky sidearm release, but it's quick, and he gets the ball out quick. So I don't know. I think it actually can be a really fun, juicy fit. They desperately need receivers. They need a right guard. They need edges. They need DBs. They have Cedric Gray, who could be a fun fit in the Saleh defense. But I don't know. I actually I don't know. I would give this maybe a B-. I hate to do the grade thing, but B-. That's kind of how I feel about this whole thing. It just depends who they hire as OC. I just will say it's better than Matt Nagy there. I know that's cruel, and maybe we're going to talk about that in a second. So yeah, I know we got some. I know you got some stuff that you can't wait to talk about there. So we'll get there in a sec. We'll start. You hinted at it. Dolphins hired Packers. This is the next hiring. Dolphins hired Packers defense coordinator Jeff Hafley as head coach, and it got reported that he wowed the Dolphins brass and they couldn't let him leave the building. And I kind of laughed because I was like, isn't part of that brass and the guy that's hiring you is the guy that you shared a building with for the last few years up until like 2 weeks ago. So the guy was like, man, I totally forgot how great this guy is. And I just, I put him at the top of the list, but wow. I thought that was kind of funny, kind of gross how the Dolphins fulfilled the Rooney rule. If I'm being honest here, Hafley seemed like he was the guy locked in. And then they were like, a minority candidates. Oh, okay. Coming on Monday. Martin Luther King Day. Okay, we'll get this out of the way. Okay, and then we announce Hafley. Oh, dude, I was like, I had to bring it up because I was like, that's kind of cruel.
Yeah.
I thought.
Wasn't it Patrick Graham? Haven't they done this to Patrick Graham before?
Shepard. I think Shepard was the other one.
Calvin Shepard. Yep.
Yep, that was another one. Yeah, I don't know, just how they did it. It kind of got leaked. And everyone kind of assumed Hafley was going there, but it kind of got leaked, and then that happened. So
yeah, we said this on the show last week that Hafley was going to be the head coach. This was our prediction, and I think it's like. It's fine. I think it's fine. I don't really know. Hafley is, like you said, he gets good reviews as a guy. He's got head coaching experience, obviously, in college. I don't really care, like what his record in college was or anything. And I like what the Packers. Yeah, I don't care. I think that the Packers defense, disappointing end of year results, but a lot of that I think has to do with injuries. I like how the secondary played under him. I liked some of their blitz stuff as the year went on. Early, like in 2024, it was kind of I wasn't that excited about it, but I thought the more they kind of added to that roster, the more free he became to be a pretty interesting defensive play caller. I wouldn't have put him in kind of like the top tier of defensive coordinators, especially available in this cycle. But yeah, I think it's totally a fine hire. And I think also what this signals is, you bring in somebody from the Packers front office, you bring in a Packers defensive coordinator. I think they're pretty, like, this is a clear line of demarcation of what we did before under, Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel. I don't know how much McDaniel had a say in all that, but the way the front office is operated, where they're just trading draft picks, they're signing these aggressive free agents. I think that's like, that's done. That's the past. They're going to, and they need to do that. They need to go towards more of a draft and develop model.
Yep. I think they were like, okay, we charged the credit card. We maxed it out. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's take a deep breath. Let's get our finances back in order. Let's resettle all this. Is it a want or a need? As me and my wife always say. New kitchen appliances. Is that a want or is that a need? I think that's what the Dolphins are going to go through. Might be a Malik Willis spot. That was another kind of thing that I think is interesting. That's one of the more interesting names, subplots of this offseason, is these kind of quarterback mystery boxes. Him, Tanner McKee, a little bit of Mac Jones. I keep bringing up Mac Jones, even though he's under contract for another year, but it's just like, I don't know. I would be dangling him if I were the 49ers. Like, hey, don't you want this guy?
We'll get to the Niners. I think they should dangle Mac Jones. But I also kind of, I'm just on the Malik Willis point. I did think about that, when McDaniel was the head coach originally. I thought it would make a lot of sense, and obviously the Packers connection is there. But the more I've looked at this Dolphins situation and again the draft and develop idea, I think nobody does this, but if I was them, I would just take their medicine this year and regroup in 2027. And even like Willis is obviously intriguing for sure. I do think he's a really interesting available quarterback, but if I was them, I'd almost just be like, yeah, you know what, we'll mess around with like Quinn Ewers and a Jacoby Brissett type in 2026 and just lose and come back next year. I know that that never actually happens, but this is a team I think that could maybe consider doing that.
Stop thinking with your brain, Matt. That's how these teams think, because that's what they should do. That's what they absolutely should do. But how is it hard to go like, oh, the Packers, we got this system. Like, this might be some of the selling the plan and everything. No, they should be just eating their vegetables, like taking a deep breath, kind of quietly do what they tried to do when they were originally tanking for Tua. And Brian Flores kind of ruined it for everybody. It's kind of like, that's what they kind of do, because there's some juicy quarterback prospects in next year's class. And wouldn't you want to go with a guy that you truly want to grow with and build around and has more potential than Willis? Willis has worlds of potential, but I've already seen enough where he's going to have some limitations as a thrower. But he is interesting. For certain teams, he is very interesting that don't have a means to having a stopgap guy or a stopgap plus. Like, you might get a little more out of him than what you think. Don't have to pay him a big deal either. Like, kind of pay him that mid-tier contract, probably a little less than what Darnold got. Way less than Darnold got. But I don't know. I think too that they should either, I know people are sick of already of the Arch Manning stuff, but just wait. Texas has got a potential super team coming this year, and he's really good. But then there's other quarterbacks in that class, Sellers, Dante Moore. There can be some interesting names, but just don't end up with the Tua of the Burrow, Herbert, Tua trio, and you might be and Jordan Love or even Hurts. That's what's funny. It changes. That whole year it was tank for Tua, and then Burrow came out. Herbert was Herbert, and Herbert was a name before. He just, obviously became just an unbelievable player. But as a prospect wise, the Tua was the guy of that class, and that's just so funny how these things change so quickly. But interesting team. Free agency wise, they kind of like don't have much that they have to re-sign. Like, what's with the old DBs? Like, that's really it. Like, they might have to get some interior linemen, but I did think the left side of that offensive line really came along. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of, I think it's a team that needs to take a deep breath, especially what they're going against in the AFC. All right, let's move on to some coordinator hires. One that, like, I don't know how to feel about this one, but the Chiefs hire Eric Bieniemy as offense coordinator, who was their offense coordinator just a few years ago and was in the Chiefs building from 2013 to 2022. After that, he became the Commanders OC, where they just chuck the ball every play. They were trying to go for the yards record, or to lead the league in yards, with Sam Howell. And then he was UCLA OC. And then he ends up as the Bears running back coach, does a great job with DeAndre Swift. Unbelievable job. And I give that a lot to Bieniemy, because it's like, you're the first guy I've seen get this out of DeAndre Swift. I'm sure some Ben Johnson's in there as well, but then goes back to the bosom of Andy Reid. And it's one of these things where I'm just kind of, this building needs new ideas. They fired the receiver coach and Brian Chad O'Shea, who also has an Andy Reid connection, but at least he was outside of Andy Reid for 20 years. But then I was like, okay, so maybe new ideas. And then they bring in Bieniemy. And it's like, on one side, I'm like, yeah, he was under Ben Johnson for 1 year. But the other side, and really this is what I think, how much do you think is going to change? Do you think he's going to come in and go, he's not getting play calling duty? That's Andy Reid. So yeah, they might have a couple new ideas, but this thing feels like it's still going to be 90% the same. Maybe he holds people accountable. I know that's what people are arguing, but we'll see. But Matt, what'd you think about this hire, bringing Bieniemy back to Kansas City?
Okay, first of all, the Matt Nagy part of this, I gotta get this off my chest. I think it is pretty clear now at this point, and maybe Matt Nagy gets the Arizona Cardinals job or one of these other jobs, maybe. Yeah. But the way that it was, like, when they discussed, when it got out that they were going to hire Eric Bieniemy, like insiders started reporting this, they all kind of just started saying, well, Matt Nagy, he's not under contract and he's expected to get a head coaching job in this cycle. So they went ahead and they replaced Eric Bieniemy. I'm like, aren't you kind of putting the cart before the horse there? Like, Matt Nagy done got a head coaching job yet. My conspiracy theory is that the Chiefs quietly fired Matt Nagy and used the media to, like, launder it. Essentially, they were going to, they didn't want Matt Nagy back and were like, well, he's going to get a head coaching job. So much so that I think Mike Borgonzi, the GM in Tennessee, Chiefs tie. Now I'm just, like, recklessly speculating, baseless accusations here. I think he's in cahoots with the whole thing. I think he was part of the laundry firing. we're gonna get it out there that we love Matt Nagy. We want Matt Nagy, just so that the Chiefs could fire Matt Nagy. I mean, which, by the way, back to the Eric Bieniemy point, I don't know if this makes a damn bit of difference. I know that the Chiefs fans and other people, outsiders as well, have kind of put this on Matt Nagy, the offense taking a step back the last couple of years, ever since Bieniemy left. I don't really know if this moves the needle at all. I do think there's, like, Bieniemy's definitely more of a hard-nosed guy. I always come back to the clip that got out from training camp when Kyle Monangai went through one of the running back drills for the Chicago Bears, and Bieniemy's like, that's an old man run right there. You're running like an old man or something like that, which, by the way, Kyle Monangai, 7th-round pick, had a really nice rookie year, so that's another credit to Eric Bieniemy, the running back coach. I think he'll be harder on players probably, which is good. I do think that needs to be a part of it. But yeah, I mean, him as an OC, I thought that Washington offense that he was in charge of was horrible. I thought it was poorly designed. I didn't think any of the route concepts made any sense. I thought the protection plan was bad. Obviously, Sam Howell is Sam Howell. He eats sacks like it's nobody's business, but still, I just didn't think it made any sense for the players that they had there. And yeah, this doesn't make me any more or any less excited about the 2026 Kansas City Chiefs, I guess.
That's kind of how I knew there'd be some changes, but I was like, Andy doesn't like doing this. Like, he likes his guys and he's earned enough clout over the years to get away with that. Like, he's Belichick. He's exactly like how Belichick was, but just Belichick, he was just crankier and a defensive guy. But I mean, Andy's the same way. These guys don't leave, and the guys that do leave come right back. Matt Nagy came right back. Gets fired, doesn't even stop anywhere else, just comes right back. Brad Childress gets fired and everything from Minnesota. Boom, first staff. with the Chiefs. There he is. He was the OC, non-play calling OC in Philly. And yeah, he was the original Matt Nagy. But no, there's just like this whole staff. Andy Heck, the offensive line coach, who is a good offensive line coach, but he's been there for over a decade. That's just how Andy Reid is. He's very loyal to his guys, and it's just how it's going to go. It's a little frustrating. I think it would be a little frustrating because I want to maybe just see some fresh ideas. And I get Andy Reid. It's Andy Reid's show. He's going to call the plays, all that stuff. But at least, add some new ingredients to the menu. That's kind of all I want to see. Now it's kind of just going to be a little bit more of the same. They might have to do a couple things, but Reid's not going to run the ball a ton. It's just not what he does. He loves thriving with quick passes. He is the most true West Coast guy still left. As far as what a true West Coast offense looks like, it's what Andy Reid runs from like the 90s. That's what it looks like, even down to split back stuff. And I think every time they've implemented new ideas, it looks better, just adding new stuff. And that's what just kind of gets frustrating. It feels like when they panic or when things go well, they devolve into what they're comfortable with. But we'll see. This team needs to, on top of it, need some personnel injections. I think both sides of the ball, skill players on offense, running back especially, and then defensively, they need some injections as well. They need guys that can win, need guys that can do stuff. I looked up the stat for somebody else, which we'll talk about, and I can't wait to rant and rave about it. But there's a stat that Next Gen Stats has, which is YAC success rate. And what it is percentage of receptions that gain more YAC than expected. So basically, whatever YAC OE, if you do that, then you check the box. Chiefs last year were 31st. In the NFL last year. And this is a team that runs so many I think the only team worse that was the Raiders, I think. And honestly, that's a good stat because all the teams at the bottom were like, yeah, that makes sense. It was like Ravens, Broncos, and I just looked up receivers and tight ends. It was like Raiders, Broncos, and then the team that we're going to talk about almost blew up, Bills. But no, these teams were at the bottom, but Chiefs were 31st. And it's like, that feels exactly right. So it's some personnel stuff, but that's the thing is like, you want new ideas to help out the personnel. So it's just some of the same issues. It's just rearranging the chairs on the deck. That's what it kind of feels like to me.
I love that stat about both of the Chiefs and the Bills because their like best receivers are Rashee Rice and Khalil Shakir, guys that are supposed to be good with the ball in their hands. But when you have an ADOT of like 4, you're gonna get yards after catch because nobody's near you. So I like the expected part of that. That makes a lot of sense.
Right. I know that one.
Obviously, Rice didn't play a lot this season, so that caveat's worth noting there.
I'm going to look more into it, or as far as I'll bring it up for the Bills because it's very relevant for the Bills too. But yeah, if you're going to operate that way, you need guys that can. You're tightening the offense because if you're not going to, there's 2 ways to create big plays: chuck it downfield, or a guy catches it and runs. The Shanahan offenses thrive on this by stuff over the middle, in breakers over the middle. That's how they create big plays. You don't see a lot of go balls in the offense. You do see a little. Same with Ben Johnson. Same with when he was with the Lions. Same with. When Sean Payton's rolling, that's how they roll too. But play action, get the guys moving. But if you're going to be an offense that just peppers underneath, you need a guy that can break a tackle and go 10 yards. Travis Kelce was that for a long time. You have a tight end that can do that. But even other guys they had, of course, Tyreek, but just other guys they had on that roster can at least get some yards, turn a 4-yard gain into a 9-yard gain, or take a 1-yard gain, like you said, and turn it into 9 yards as opposed to just he gets 2 yards more over expected, but it's just a 3-yard gain. Here's 2nd and 7, or here's 3rd and 5, as opposed to a first down, which makes it easier for everybody. But yeah, that's actually it's a GM thing, and that I think applies to Veach and the Chiefs, and it applies to the Bills and Bean, which I'm sure we'll talk about plenty. All right, the last coordinator hire, the Lions hire Drew Petzing as offensive coordinator. He was the Cardinals offensive coordinator for 3 years. And I can see that a lot of Lions fans online are either saying, who? Or what are we doing? But I understand that. Not a lot of people have watched the Cardinals. And trust me, I have some notes on this. But Matt, you've watched a lot of Cardinals offense, watched a lot of the passing game.
Fortunately.
I've had some thoughts on Marvin Harrison Jr., whether you had to have those thoughts or you actually wanted to talk about them, but you were forced to talk about it and watch it a lot. Michael Wilson thoughts, all that stuff. What do you think about Drew Petzing now moving into Detroit, how he fits with his personnel and just this hire overall?
I mean, I think when I saw the headline come in, I was definitely like, what? Number one, because it's just it's like a little out of left field, because I think that this was such a I would imagine it was a pretty coveted job, the offensive coordinator, and I think that there was a lot of fan fiction online about, was Mike McDaniel going to take this job? To me, I didn't really see that fit from what either wants to do. And, again, there's no like connective shared DNA there.
Yep. It's hard for guys to do that. Thing,
totally. Yeah. It's easier said than done. It's like playing fantasy football, but with like coaches and play callers. It's cool to think about, but then you get like the we got to work together on a day-to-day basis, and maybe they would have been great together. I don't know. But I think Petzing, again, so it felt very out of left field because I didn't even know that he interviewed for this job. I never saw anything about that. I also think, like, if we can be fair, it's not the most inspiring on paper hire. The name Drew Petzing, he's coming from a Cardinals team that has been horrible and has been pretty maligned on offense. I think, though, I don't find Petzing's offense as offensive as other people seem to. I think that I could make some nitpicks in terms of, maybe not even nitpicks, just real criticism about the actual play calling and some of the sequencing of it and like his feel for games and stuff like that. But he is a young guy. It was his first time calling plays. Maybe he's better in his second stop. Also, this is going to be Dan Campbell's offense one way or another. I think we saw that this past year. And I do think Petzing is a much better hire than like John Morton was, because I do think there's much more shared DNA with what Petzing wants to do and what the Lions are than what John Morton was. We talked about the Morton thing a lot. It's like, okay, yeah, he had worked with this Lions team, but his background was a very like vertical kind of spread out offense. Whereas with Petzing, it's very heavy, it's condensed. They want to have a good run game. And I do think the run game obviously took a step back this past year. They lost Clayton Adams. We know that. The offensive line talent wasn't very good. And they were down to like their fourth string running back at several points during the season. So how much of that is really Petzing's fault? I don't know. I do think that some of the stuff about just how he used the receivers, I always had complaints about that. I think that, to me, like the moment they drafted Marvin Harrison Jr. after watching Michael Wilson, I was like, there's no reason these guys can't be interchangeable. There's no reason that that one of them has to be, this is our Z and the other is our X. And then that's exactly what they did for essentially 3 straight years, or 2 seasons, which annoyed the hell out of me. But that's probably not going to be an issue here in Detroit because everybody has clear roles. Drew Petzing's not going to get in there and be like, hey, Dan, what if we did this? Like, that's not going to happen, especially after what went on last year. So I think it's fine. I think it's fine. Yeah. And I don't think anything that happened in the back half of last year is replicable at all. Yeah, it's not applicable at all. That was a pure fantasy scam, garbage time induced. Yep. That's not going to be what happens here in Detroit at all.
It was real.
It's just, I think it's like a fresh start for Petzing, who certainly needed it because it did not go well. And I mean, objectively, it did not go well for him or anybody in Arizona.
Yeah, especially last year. Yeah, it was. I described it online because I got tagged in a few things. Like, it was funny. Originally when they interviewed Arthur Smith, and I was like, hey, Arthur Smith's not as bad as I think people are making him out to be, and he's a great fit for the Lions. And then they hired Drew Petzing. I get tagged, and then I'm just like, hey, he's fine. Like, he's fine. It's not a home run, but I think it's a single that can maybe leg out to a double. That's how I described it. They got on base with this hire, and it's not striking out in 3 swings like Morton was. This guy called plays in his 30s for a reason. It's because people had a lot of respect for Petzing or where he was going. Do I think he's future head coach material? No, but I think he could be a nice, solid OC, a good, solid OC and a good offense, and it kind of just be like unoffensive. Inoffensive, unoffensive. But it makes stylistic sense. And I think that's what's nice is it's a traditional offense, a lot of under center. Yeah, they used a lot of tight ends, but that was some of the personnel stuff, but also it just fits maybe what the Lions want to do anyways. I think Goff is going to be a much better fit for what they want to do than anything. They try to make Kyler more of a real quarterback.
Right.
Had some success. Yeah, but you could just tell it wasn't what I mean. They want to rip dig routes and throws over the middle. Kyler was doing it, but it wasn't what he missed half of them. Like, not saying throwing wise, he just didn't throw them. Like the ball was never put in play. Yeah, and that's what you and I talked about.
Trust me.
Oh, it's great. Marvin Harris Jr. is the backside X running digs, but Kyler's never going to throw that. Yeah. So you put him on routes that he's going to the frustration I always got was, but it was also hard to it's talking on both sides of my mouth was they would run stick a bunch because Coward loves throwing stick. And they put Trey McBride on it all the time. And I get that. It was like, Trey McBride's really good at it. Don't want to change. It's like, put MH and Marvin Harrison Jr. on that and pepper him with a couple of those. Like, that was kind of what, so what you're saying is like, I thought there could have been some role creativity to open some things up with these guys. And like, yeah, I'm just repeating what you said. But anyways, yeah. So staticness on third down, maybe that's the best way I can describe it. But traditional offense, kind of a hybrid offense. There's a lot of kind of Eric Coryell, Sean Payton to it. You know, if you watch Stefanski and the Browns, similar to that. And with some West Coast influences in it, don't get me wrong. But definitely the run game has some Bill Callahan influences, a lot of under center play action, varied run game. So he's comfortable with that kind of structure of offense. I think maybe is the best way I put it. Yeah, the Clayton Adams thing, you know, he left, and I think that I should have really focused on it a little more because of who they hired, which is a college coach at offensive line. And by the way, I had a comment that like, oh, Clayton Adams left, and people are just going, oh, you didn't watch the Cardinals. You've never heard of Clayton Adams until this week. And it's like, oh, you want to get under my skin? That kind of comment gets under my skin. Oh, you didn't watch, first off, but saying, oh yeah, you just heard about Clayton Adams. It's like, I almost had some arrogant tweets yesterday and saying like, who do you think everyone else heard Clayton Adams from? And I tried never to be like that. I was like, you think anyone else knew who freaking Clayton Adams was? Like, come on, man. Tweeting about Cardinals 2 years ago when they had freaking Dobbs at quarterback and they were doing cool run game stuff. I was losing by 30 to the 49ers. People were acting like I just heard about Clayton Adams. God, sorry. I had to get that off my chest. That was really ticking me off this week.
That's like, so funny.
Oh, man. I know. Sorry. But yeah, the old line got
listen, it is always nice when you get something like that. I mean, obviously, you didn't think it was nice. I always find it funny when people say this, like, why am I even bothering talking to you? Like, you clearly you've never consumed a single second of my content. Like, so what are we doing here? But yeah.
If you follow me and you say that stuff, that's when I get peeved. It's like, you should know better. If you don't follow me, I ignore you. Like, I'm just like, all right, cool. You're just a guy coming in, like, spout, you know.
Turn the notifications on next time, pal,
saga.
so you can get the next Clayton Adams update.
I'm sorry. That ticked me off more. And people were like, you never heard of him. I was like, there's no point. You guys, my co-hosts and our producer, Stone, are as annoyed of how much I brought up Clayton Adams and the Cardinals for the last 2 years. And then all of a sudden now I don't watch them, apparently.
You
but
wish you didn't watch
just
them.
Talking about, I didn't watch them, apparently. I watched too much of this freaking team. The O-line got banged up, also regressed just greatly. Like they didn't have, Paris Johnson Jr. is good. The rest is kind of like whatever. The center is decent, but it's not anybody's a plus starter. You mentioned it. They're playing Michael Carter and Bam Knight at running back. So it's like this year is just such a wash. Or throw it out kind of thing. Hank Fraley, though, this was my other argument with this is if your issue is that he's nothing without Clayton Adams, which I don't totally agree with, but Clayton Adams is good. You got Hank Fraley, and Hank Fraley and Drew Petzing they've worked together in Minnesota. So that has to be some plus. You know, it's not all end all be all, but that does help out a little bit. And also, this would be the last thing is the 3 years Petzing was a coordinator in Arizona. So this is over 2023 to 25. So including Brissett starting, including Dobbs starting, including the Kyler starts, they were 7th in running back rushing success rate. So it doesn't include quarterback runs. So you can't say, oh, that's a Kyler stat. 7th. 4th in explosive runs on designed runs only. So not including scrambles. Overall, 14th in EPA per play. Kyler started half those games, but 14th in EPA per play. So average. And I'm hearing that he's the worst play caller that's ever existed. 14th. 6th in EPA per run, 19th in EPA per dropback. Again, that's with Brissett, that's with Dobbs in there. 12th in success rate, 7th in rushing success rate, 19th in pass success rate. So like an average-ish play caller with not the greatest, ecosystem being built there.
No.
And tons of play action, all that good stuff. And then in 2024 was their best year, 11th in DVOA. They had a top 5 run game. Very explosive, and they were 8th in passing success rate and 12th in EPA per dropback. So he's built offenses with stuff that might not have been perfect for it, and I think the Lions' ecosystem and personnel fit what he wants to do. And he's got Hank Fraley, and he's got Dan Campbell overseeing it all. So I don't know. I agree with you. I don't think it's the most amazing. Oh my God, this guy's going to surprise so many people. Watch this. But I think this is just a fine B. I would put this as a B higher. That I think kind of people underrated a little bit because I get it. No one watches. I got under Cardinals fan skin because I call them the Phoenix Cardinals, and I did that on purpose. But yeah, the formerly St. Louis Cardinals. All right,
you betrayed them.
That was fun. We didn't even get to the postmortem yet, and I got another rant coming, so don't you guys worry. But before we get to that first break, check us out on the Yahoo Sports Network, available on leading fast services or on yahoosports.tv. So make sure to check that out. We're going to take our first break, and then we're finally going to get to the postmortem with those divisional round losers. See you guys in a sec. We are back. Time to talk about those 4 losers from this last weekend. Sorry, there's a John Cena clip one time. He's talking to John Laurinaitis. He just keeps going, loser, loser. So every time I say it, I want to say it like that. And so, yeah. All right, we're going to get on to the first team. I don't know if anyone's heard, but the Bills lost this weekend. Their quarterback's awful, so I don't know how they expected to win. But they lost, and then they fired their head coach, Sean McDermott. Yeah. And on top of it, it wasn't a clearinghouse. The GM, Brandon Beane, gets promoted to president of football operations. Okay, postmortem, Matt. We talked a little about this Sunday night. Talked about some of the stuff. Okay, I even asked you guys. All right, moving on from McDermott. We all kind of agreed. I don't know if you can do that. Look at this crop of coaches. I don't know if you can do that. Run about all that stuff. McDermott fired, Beane promoted. What do you make of this, Matt? What do you make of potential Bills candidates? What do you make of Brandon Beane and this roster? What do you just make of this whole Buffalo Bills situation going on right now?
Where do we
just went 40 minutes on coaching hirings. We can do 40 minutes just on the Bills right now.
Yeah, we really could. We'll try not to. But yeah, I think, man, it was funny. When I said on Sunday night, I was like, I could understand if they fired McDermott, even if I don't think this is like the correct season to call for his job because of what I think he did a really good job with the pass defense, in particular down the stretch. A lot of the like coverage rotations and disguise coverages. We've talked a lot about that. I said that I could get behind it though if you just want like a new voice at the top, and if it was going to come with a house cleaning, because I think the bigger problem is the front office, and it didn't come with the house cleaning. In fact, it came with Brandon Beane getting promoted. And look, like maybe Beane is really great to have around the building, blah, 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 all that stuff. Like he's getting promoted to oversee more of the operation. Maybe he's great at that stuff. I don't know. But man, that's crazy. That's still on paper crazy to me. Again, McDermott being fired, I think number one, I think it should be said, like that guy, and Brandon Beane too, but like that guy dragged Buffalo from like the dregs of the league. I mean, it's just interesting talking about the Bills now when we're all upset that they lost in the divisional round. Do you guys remember the Bills 10 years ago? It was a complete train wreck of a franchise. So
Tyrod Taylor starting at QB, Rex Ryan was just hanging out.
Wait. Slow down. I'm not talking. Don't be talking about my guy Tyrod like that. You know, Hampton VA's finest. I'm talking about before Tyrod.
Supposed to be the guy too. I've heard nothing but amazing things about him over the years. So.
Correct. So
I hesitate to talk.
How dare you? How dare you? I'm talking about before that when they drafted EJ Manuel in the first round, and like, you know, they had JP Losman and Trent Edwards, and, you know, just brutal stuff for Bills fans after their success in the 90s. And McDermott's a big part of dragging them out. At the same time, though, I do think you can only do something for so long and not just like, hey, let's just get a new fresh voice at the top here. Even though the players were apparently really upset about it and really liked McDermott, I think people all like McDermott, and I think we can all agree he does do a really good job with the secondary in particular, but he's not the head coach of the secondary. This is what's like been driving me crazy, especially this coaching cycle is, well, his side of the ball is really good. I don't give a shit if his side of the ball is really good. He's the head coach of the football team. There is a point where it's like, yes, again, it's great to have that guy be able to build that side of the ball up, but as the head coach, it's going to come up again when we talk about a different team. You're accountable for the entire operation here. And at the same time, though, as I say that about McDermott, I do think the front office has been a bigger problem than the coaching staff for this Buffalo Bills team. This roster is not good. Apparently, some of the reports coming out from Ian Rappaport in particular had this. I don't know if you saw this, but one of the things that's come out is like there was McDermott was very willing to talk about how weak the roster was, and both Brandon Beane and Terry Pegula, the owner, did not like that. Again, that was the report from Ian Rappaport. That was a big part of why they're moving on from McDermott. I'm like, yeah, that sounds like the general manager who got upset about at a couple of radio hosts pointing out about his flaws at the wide receiver position, which led us to be throwing to Brandon Cooks in the divisional round, who, by the way, Brandon Cooks, for a 2-win Saints team before he got released, was being targeted on 8.8% of his routes. For people that are not familiar with targets per route run, that's really, really low. So it's just like, again, I think that, and that's only one position. And I think you could say like, hey, are some of the way they built the defense where it's very small and slow, I think could that be like a bit of a McDermott thing too? I think that's part and old. That's probably McDermott's not excused from that. I'm not saying that McDermott was perfect and Beane is the devil, but I think that there is just a little bit more meat in the middle here that I can't really square with. We're clearing out McDermott and then we're going to keep and promote the general manager. I just don't really think that reflects what happened with this team. All respect to everybody involved here.
Yeah, I'm not happy with any of it. Like, it was, as far as I was frustrated with the Bills stuff, like, as far as I did think the defense did as much as they could with what they had. I've had frustrations with McDermott sometimes where it's like, okay, that's kind of easy that you guys are running this coverage or that coverage. Okay, you need to do a little something. So kind of what I was saying about Saleh. Like, hey, you got to change it up a little bit. But McDermott has also shown that he changes it up in these big matchups and throws screwballs and curveballs. And so it's like, it's hard for me to talk out both sides of my mouth. It's like he kind of does try to do stuff. It's just they have no horses. Then you look at the stables of every position, and even the O-line, which is probably their second best position outside the monster they have at quarterback. Yes, he's still an elite quarterback. But believe it or not, guys, he's still an elite, amazing quarterback. The O-line, 2 of those guys are free agents. You know, it's not like those are long-term, and they were free agent signings to begin with. It's not like those guys were long-term, drafted guys that they've grown with. Like, yeah, they have Dawkins. They have Spencer Brown. Spencer Brown faced some injuries this year. Dawkins, we'll see how he ages. Not exactly going to win any, Mr. Olympia contest, but he's still a good player. And a Cyrus Torrance, pretty solid starter at right guard. Not amazing, not a Pro Bowler, but solid starter. I'll give him that. Not great in pass pro, but good in a run game. And I just thought I'm frustrated with this defense, at least, is that they never drafted or sign guys that match what they do. And that to me is some disconnect between what the coaches want. And you can't always draft for scheme. And this is something that, as a guy that's been a coach's son, I've been a coach, I've been a scout, I've been a player. And I understand everyone's argument in this stuff where it's like, Bill Parcells had the line of, well, if I'm going to cook this stuff, I should be able to at least pick out the ingredients. Like, talking about players that they get selected. Yeah. And sometimes the coaches don't know exactly what they want. And sometimes the personnel doesn't kind of get the scheme. And I always felt like there's a disconnect there. Don't know who to blame that on. I lean more to the execs because of just, Brandon Beane wants to take ownership of all of this. Good. When it's good, well, you got to take some ownership of when it doesn't match and it's bad. And why I'm bringing this up is McDermott's a quarters guy. You can say that good or bad. If you're going to run a quarter shell, watch the Seahawks and how they're built. Badass D-line. So run stuffing linebacker, Ernest Jones, because decent in coverage, okay in coverage, but good in the run. But a run stuffer was good size. Safeties that can come up and fill the run. Tenacious slot players, multiple slot players. And when I watch the Bills over the years, who's they have Daquan Jones, but he's old now and banged up and a free agent. If you're going to run a 4-3 defense that's going to run like this, you need guys that can eat blocks up front. And they always went finesse up front. Ed Oliver is a gap shooter. He's not holding up against a double team. And okay, that's fine. All right, we're going to have guys that gap shoot. Okay, that's fine. Then we get the linebackers. Matt Milano was a good player, good find, all that stuff. But all these guys are 220. So now you're light gap shooting, to stuff the run. And then you also have light bodies behind it who, yes, can run sideline to sideline. It's kind of like one of those has to be big is what I'm getting at. All right, now we're getting into quarter shell safeties, both free agent signings too, but the original ones. And they try to, get new guys to, turn over and pull your left and everything. But it's those guys, I keep bringing this up with Cole Bishop, he had moments, but he's not a fit in this defense at all. Maxwell Hairston is not a fit in this defense at all for what I assume that these guys want. You want big. You want guys with size that can tackle well. And if you're going to play all this zone, you want size that can tackle well because you're squeezing stuff. And so that just never made sense to me. All the free agent signings they try to inject pass rush with, I mean, Joey Bosa was a good pass rusher this year. Also just crapped out in the playoffs and just like had some real negative moments. But Von Miller's signing, the multiple draft picks they spent up there, none of those guys are aces, or I would even say a high end 2. Those guys are like, same with the receiver room. It's all 3s. Like, and Khalil Shakir is a good player. I think we both like Khalil Shakir, but I think you and I both know what he is. He's a receiver 3. Like, he's a real good receiver 3, maybe a 2, but it's like he should be the 3rd best pass catcher on your team. Does that make sense? Like if you have a good tight end or something like that. Okay, Brandon Cooks, you just mentioned
he's
him.
also hyper specific too.
Yeah,
he's very hyper specific player is Khalil Shakir, where you then need to be really good on the outside because he has to play on the inside and run short area routes. Really, but he's a great pick in the 5th round. That was an awesome steal in the 5th round. I thought he was more of a day 2 guy. I think he's played more like a day 2 guy.
Same. And like it's not like Michael Wilson, where it's like, oh, I can line you up anywhere. You could be the Z, X, or power slot. Khalil Shakir has to be used in the same certain way. I totally agree with it, and also a way that doesn't, to me, and just football theory wise, matches with the quarterback exactly what I think he needs. A guy like Keon Coleman is what I thought like a guy like Josh Allen needs, but Keon Coleman's been a dud. And this is where the stat I wanted to get to is, so basically it's receivers and D-line just keep being the thing every single year for this team. I like Joshua Palmer as a glue guy, but again, that's a receiver 3. Like that's not a needle mover. At best, yeah, like really he's a 4, but 3 or 4. So I looked at them. This is another stat I looked up on Next Gen Stats. Missed tackles forced. I just looked at the receivers and tight ends again because James Cook, good player. Khalil Shakir forced 19 missed tackles this year, a good amount. Like that ranked like top up there with receivers. Dalton Kincaid was 2nd on this team in missed tackles forced. How many do you think he missed or made? How many missed tackles do you think he forced this year?
I can't be very many. I mean, because he was more of like a vertical guy for this team.
And he was in 2nd with 3. 3. The rest of the Bills receivers combined this year forced 9 missed tackles. I don't know why I did 3. 9 missed tackles combined by the rest of the receivers and tight ends. Khalil Shakir forced 19. The rest of them forced 9. The whole year. And this team is just going mesh, bubbles. Wait, that's impossible. The quarterback has to be perfect every single time because these guys are not making anything happen with the ball in their hands. Even a guy like Kincaid, who's explosive, it was all designer plays. How many times have you seen Kincaid make someone miss? It's never. I brought this up on Sunday as well. 25th in the YAC success rate stat that I brought up. It's just a very frustrating roster. And then you look at all the free agents they got. Joey Bosa, Daquan Jones, Connor McGovern, good player. Larry Ogunjobi, who was a dud this year and jumped off sides on Saturday. He's probably the happiest guy about this whole fallout from Josh Allen because he jumped off sides on a fumble. Matt Milano, who's been banged up, but was such a good player. AJ Epinenza, just another fine starter, okay starter. Trey White, who played well this year, but it's Trey White after all these injuries. David Edwards, Reggie Gilliam, a valuable role player. Shaq Thompson, who actually played okay in this defense as well. I don't know. You see, it's very frustrating, I think, on the outside to watch all this and then just see the names that are getting thrown out there. Joe Brady, Brian Dable. Are you kidding me? It's like, well, they have a good relationship with Josh Allen, and it's making me sound like freaking Mike Martz when Sean McVay got hired with Jared Goff. Are you hiring a quarterback a buddy, or are you hiring him a coach? And Martz was wrong about McVay. But what I'm saying with this, that's kind of how I feel. It's like, okay, I get it. You want Josh Allen to have a good relationship with your head coach, but that's not. But I mean, like, there's more to this. There's way more to this. And Tim Graham from The Athletic did a great reporting today. And basically what you said, it's just like Brandon Beane, the owner trusts people, and he just like has a hard way of kind of like he kind of trusts everyone. It's almost like, I won't say gullible, but kind of a little naive, I think, with a little bit of this. If you just read Tim Graham's reporting, you kind of get what I mean. Talk about old players or old execs in the Bills. They hired a guy who, with the Sabres, the hockey team, he had no idea he was previously a GM for the same team, like stuff like that. But Bean, you can tell Bean sits with him during games. So any issues that he had, he goes, they're just not coaching him right. No, they're just not coaching. This is a tale as old as time in football. Bill Walsh had jokes about this in his book from the 80s. So it's just a frustrating kind of Game of Thronesian type moment, I think, for the Bills and everything that we got here. But yeah, any final thoughts? What do they need? They need trenches. They need receivers. It's, at least you got Josh Allen, I guess. But is there any names that came to mind that you're like, oh, that would be an interesting hire? But I'm kind of scared of who they end up going with.
Yeah, trenches and pass catchers. That's what and like, you really got to be serious about the pass catcher thing. And, the Keon Coleman thing is so tough because, I talked a lot about that. I thought he might be a good candidate to be more of a big slot than an X receiver. And, they draft him to this team that your best receiver has to play in the slot. And Bean, because I was going back and looking through like some of the old stuff about this, Bean at the press conference said like, oh, he's our X receiver. So he definitely did not watch my YouTube breakdown about this stuff, but that's which is fine. Brandon, I'm here to consult, brother. I'm here if you want to pay me six figures to come in for a week and just give you some stuff, I'm happy to do it. But doubt that he's going to call me after some of the stuff I just said. But
he might. He listens to everything apparently. He got to start in PR, so he might.
There we go. But I just think that was immediately like, dude, no way. Like that's not going to work out. And it's worked out, I think, even worse than it probably should have. Just to me, like, especially I've watched so much of not just McDermott's defenses, but also Brady's offense in Carolina, where they got the most out of 3 receivers on that team. DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, and Curtis Samuel had over 1,000 yards from scrimmage on that team. And like now it's the offense, it's the coaching. I don't think so, because these guys are just like, it's the players. They're not that talented. Yeah. They're not that talented, and they don't fit what the offense wants to be. And then on defense too, like you brought this up, K1 Short was awesome for that like 2015 Panthers defense, with McDermott and everything like that.
Great
but he had, ironically, the guy who was drafted ahead of him, Star Lotulelei, was ahead of, and he was just a big plugger. Mm-hmm. And that's why like K1 Short can go have 11 sacks for that 2015 Panthers team, because he had that big plugger there. And that's, if you're going to run that type of the kind of smaller, faster linebackers flying around the secondary that you're getting the most out of the least, whatever, you got to have the big guys up front. This team's just never done that. So I think it's going to take a full scale kind of hard look in the mirror moment for the front office, and be kind of a little bit more introspective about who you're chasing, why you're chasing these players, and a coaching staff that it pairs well with. And I'm just like you, though, I'm really perturbed by the names that come out there right away. Not only is it maybe internal promotion from Joe Brady, the Brian Daboll thing is just a non-starter for me. And then even Davis Webb, who I think is interesting as like a young up and coming candidate. He's 30 years old. Sean Payton has been kind of grooming him to maybe be one of the next guys. But the first line that everybody throws out about him is, he's Josh Allen's best friend. I'm with you, dude. I like the best relationships in life come with, that's like, relationships are friction. It's headbutting. And maybe they have that dynamic. Yes. Maybe they have that, but I would much rather have someone to come in here and push a team that I think has gotten a little complacent and comfortable. And I just don't know that any of those names, like guys from your past or whatever, are going to come in here and bring you this like fresh start. It just seems like they'll be more so stuck in this kind of same cycle. And for a team where it doesn't matter who you get, the pressure is going to be very, very, very high.
And also, whoever comes in, they changed how the hierarchy works. Now the head coach reports to Bean. So you have Josh Allen, which is the biggest chip that you can dangle out here. Like, hey, we got this. Any coach
otherwise
candidate.
Though, not that appealing. And even the Josh Allen part of it, like it's great. Oh, you get to coach Josh Allen. That's awesome. But in 2 years, if you don't get where you want to go,
you're gone.
You're in trouble. Like, you're in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're attaching yourself to a guy that has already shown, that will throw you under the bus. Sean McDermott brought Brandon Bean in. McDermott was hired
from Panthers. God.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. They're basically Panthers North. He brings him in. This is what gets me. He was hired, does the draft, and then brings Bean in after. And then Bean's the one that survives and gets promoted. It's like, I haven't seen a worm tongue situation like this in a while. So I'm just kind of cracking up like this. This is like, Trent Baalke would be so proud of this. I would also say this is kind of my last closing thought, like just kind of like a lack of foresight with all this. All right, Teron Johnson, who's finds a nice, strong slot for this team, not the biggest guy, definitely worn down this year. They had no succession plan for this. This is a team that thrived in nickel. They were one of the few teams that did it, and they did it really well. And they never just had like a guy in the wings in case he got banged up at 188 pounds playing the slot in a very physical sport. Had nothing for years, nothing behind that. I don't know, man. It just showed to me it was a guy that really likes the idea of things as opposed to what it actually entails. And I just kind of see that all over the roster. And even if you sell like, okay, the run game's good, the O-line's good, they're losing a couple of those guys potentially, or they have to have question marks there too. I don't know. It's not as good of a roster as you think, even with having a dude at quarterback. All right, let's go. We're going to now. Man, there's a long pod. We're going now to the Bears, who also feeling a little bit better in Chicago, even after coming off the loss. And honestly, they had a pretty sound performance on Sunday, reviewing it and just even looking at the stats. They out success rated the Rams in that game. They did lose. I thought the defense had a nice performance. They have some interesting depth things, but anything that just has, since we talked about them Sunday night, we kind of did like a mini postmortem going like, yeah, great feelings as you guys are playing with house's money right now. Anything after a couple of nights sleeping on them that maybe like they should address this offseason or something that comes to mind with them?
I think we kind of all know what the Bears need. I do think they need to get tougher on defense. I'm not saying like from an attitude perspective or anything like that, but they're a team that I think could use another edge rusher, use more help on the interior, which is funny because they actually spent money on that position last offseason. But
picks.
And picks. But I think that's something that they could continue to address. I think they should continue to address. I think the corner room is in pretty good shape if they can stay healthy next year.
Yep.
The Edmonds at linebacker, that might be one where he's kind of more of a holdover from the old coaching staff. You might move on there, but otherwise, I think the defense just needs a couple of kind of tweaks here and there, that should be probably your primary area of focus. I think Dennis Allen, on the whole, did a really good job. Thought he was great in the divisional round. McVay even said afterwards to Dennis Allen, he's like, "You guys kicked our ass," which very ballsy game plan. Even thinking back on it from Dennis Allen, just how much they blitzed, and I know they kind of got killed on the final blitz. I probably wouldn't have left Puka Nacua as the guy in isolation there, but again, you were doing it all. You were doing it all game, and it was working out. So it ended up being the thing that kind of bit you at the end, but at the same time, that was a really good game plan. I'd like to them just pour more resources there. On offense, I just think it's like we got to get these guys to continue to grow and develop. I don't think DJ Moore will be on this team. I think you could probably replace his role, and I think the teams will be interested in acquiring DJ Moore, maybe not for big like prices or anything like that. God, he'll be a Bill because he's a former Panther and there's a connection there, but he's totally a Bill. He's totally a Bill. Yeah, he's a Bill. He'll be Josh Allen's receiver one this coming year. Put that in the books. But anyways, I think DJ's still a fine player. He just doesn't totally fit this offense because it just took some of his play style stuff, and I think you could get kind of a clear out guy, which is what he was at times. You could find that. That's one thing I would say on offense. As much as I'm optimistic about Loveland, about Burden, about Adunze, I love some of the comments from Adunze about his meeting with Antoine Randall postseason, just like talking about the accountability he needs to take to finish plays to become the player that he should be for this team. I think that obviously is pretty clear to anybody that watched him. But as much as I'm optimistic about those guys, I don't want to make the same mistake of like the Falcons last year, or where you're just, hey, we were good on offense last year. Let's run it all back, not get any depth. You don't want to do that. And then the other thing to pay attention to is the left tackle spot, because Trapillo tore his patella tendon in the playoffs. That's something you got to take care of.
Absolutely. Josh Simmons for the Chiefs showed like might be a quicker recovery than my brain thought, but that's still a serious injury that you get hurt freaking January. And he had some nice moments. He was he was a rookie day 2 left tackle. And I actually thought he had some nice moments. I like, they had potential there, but that's what I wrote. You were talking about the receivers. I actually even said that about the O-line. It's like, don't be complacent with just because the O-line was good this year. You were super healthy outside the left tackle spot. That you do not get complacent there. You just always add. My dad's theory with O-line is you add a pick every year. It doesn't matter if it's a third rounder or a fourth rounder. You just got to add depth. Got to keep the turnstiles going, or not turnstiles, factory going. Just keep it going. Keep it going.
I would rather do that than add another pass catcher. We do not need like another big name pass catcher. We need to grow those 3 young guys. I'm saying like a 4th round speed receiver to clear stuff out.
Tyler Scott was supposed to be. In this offense,
like that type
that's
of guy.
A name
what Darnell Mooney kind of, it was, for real. But somebody like that. But the O-line, if they spent like a 2nd round pick on a, future guard, because Joe Tooney is what, like our 32? Age? I mean,
that's the cutoff now. He's 33.
Yeah, he's out.
Turns.
Okay, he's younger than me. God.
Yeah, he's 33. No, he played good this year. He takes care of his body, doesn't miss time. Yeah, I think they got him under contract 1 more year, off the top of my head. But that's the thing is you need succession plans. Doesn't mean one out, one in. It could also mean like one's about to be out, and then we get the one in, and we overlap for that 1 year, and then we go on. That's how you properly do it. I always call it the Colossus of Rhodes. You got one leg on each spot. The people that know the wonders of the world will get that joke. But it's they have a lot of free agents, but it wasn't like significant. Jaquan Brisker and Kevin Byard at safety. So like spine of the defense, D tackle. We'll see with the linebacker stuff. They've injected some talent there, but it's just so many injuries they had that this year. Running back was a big need. They're losing Eric Bieniemy, so it must be noted. But Swift played so well this year, and Monangai played well. So who knows at the running back? It's not as much of a need as it was maybe what I thought 5 months ago, in September. So that actually is really nice for where they're at. They have their picks, not much else. So after living in Panthers coin land for a few years. All right, we're going to take our last break. We'll come back with those 2 other divisional teams, maybe a couple other stray thoughts. If we don't go along, no promises. All right, see you guys in a sec. All right, we are back. Let's get on over to the Houston Texans, who lost to the Patriots. I've slept on it. This will be my thought. I rewatched the game. Texans pass catchers were more of the issue than anything. I know Stroud has turnovers, but Xavier Hutchinson, saboteur in this game. And this is what happens when you get Nico Collins is hurt and Dalton Schultz gets hurt right away, and you're throwing to a day 2 rookie receiver and Hutchinson and freaking a project tight end and Christian Kirk body catching in the cold, good and bad. It was, not ideal. But the O-line actually was a little better than I actually thought they would be when I was watching it in real time. But Stroud was Stroud and all that stuff. But I'm actually curious, after you slept on it a little bit, Matt, how are you feeling about the Texans and where they're at? What do you think is a priority for them this offseason? Because I believe you and I I presented this question to you and Chuck was, Jags or Texans, kind of who you're feeling better about at this time, in this moment, which was a couple nights ago. Slept on a little bit. What do you think about the Texans now as their postmortem in the offseason?
I really don't know if I feel any better about the Texans than I did on Sunday. And, you bring up the pass catchers and yeah, dog, like you drafted these rookies and you did not empower them at any point this year to play. And it's like, Nico Collins goes out in the playoffs and, Nico Collins is a top 5 NFL receiver. He's awesome. And when you lose one of those guys, it's always going to be tough. But it's even tougher when, you played Hutchinson by choice all year. So I don't want to hear about we had to play Xavier Hutchinson. You played Hutchinson by choice all freaking season ahead of these guys that you drafted this year because you were kind of intentionally slow and conservative with those pass catchers, which do not draft any pass catchers this year. Again, this is another team that you need to just roll into the next season with Collins as your X and Higgins at Z and Noel at slot and kind of interchange those 2 Iowa State guys. I think they could have done that this year, and that was frustrating, but they definitely can do it next year. But that's again, I almost don't want to hear any complaints about that from the Texans because you set yourself up to get screwed by this stuff at this point. And I do think they're what they need to do this offseason is they need to fix CJ Stroud. Whatever that means, that needs to happen. And I'm curious, how worried are you that some of the stuff that has I can't ascribe it anything else other than scar tissue has just built up for this guy.
Yep.
And like, how do you fix that? How do you make it better? And do you trust the current collection of offensive coaches to be the ones to do that? Because I just really wasn't all that impressed with anything that Kaylee did this year. It was the Nico thing is tough too, because they don't do anything to weaponize Nico Collins in terms of moving him around. It's just like line up at X and run a really hard route tree against the top corner every single week, which makes the quarterback's life a lot tougher when when your number one target is always going to be the guy that is easy to scheme away, that is going to be running those vertical routes. I think it's like that's my biggest problem and why I think this is a little bit of I don't want to call it an existential crisis for the Texans, but it kind of is, because it's like one thing compounds on the other and makes everything worse. And Stroud being so erratic, I think, is a big part of this.
It's an offense that's meant for the quarterback to be, this year's version was meant for the quarterback to kind of keep the train on the rails. And Stroud for the last 2 years has been the only thing going for him. I mean, the pass catchers, of course, but the passing game kind of having to be boom or bust because the run game's been so bad. And this offense is built more, it feels very Patriots-ish, more than Rams-ish, I guess would be a good way to put it, because it just feels very much like, nope, we're ugly. We're winning ugly. It has to be very kind of like small gains, efficiency, as opposed to explosives. And that's fine, but it feels like Stroud didn't get the memo. And I don't think they really kind of like incubated him. Like when he did have the spiral moments, it's obvious that he spirals. So you're talking about some of the scar tissue stuff. And D'Amico Ryans is already non-committal about Nick Haley. So that actually kind of was like, okay, all right. So it's not like he's like, oh, these are guy and everything, because it was uninspiring. Yeah. There's nothing completely egregious about the Texans offense this year, but there's nothing inspiring. There's nothing where I was like, that was cool design. That was cool how they did this. It was just very, I make this joke a lot, but very missionary position, just a lack of imagination all throughout. And I brought up the receiver thing because Keegan Abdu from Next Gen Stats, I think I shared this Sunday night, but I do want to share it again. That was a career high tight window rate for Stroud in the game. He went 2 of 13 for 15 yards, a touchdown and a pick on that. And that's what it felt like. Just everybody was tight window. And yeah, you can blame some of that on the receivers, but Higgins has talent. And Hutchinson isn't like the worst player in the world, but he was on Sunday. But he's not like the worst thing I've ever seen. But I just watched this and I was like, yeah, I recognize that concept. There's no window dressing on it. There's no motion. There's no formation that's funky. There's no out motion. There's no weird cadence. There's no hurry up. There's no tools. Like they have a wrench. They don't just have a lot of tools to give everybody. Like I've seen the pass coordinators give a lot, put more on Stroud than Kaylee did, and I thought that was going to be the whole thing for Stroud this year. They were going to put more like pre-snap off, and they kind of took more away from him, which was interesting and not what I was expecting. And I think this is so the scar tissue. I think what you refer to, and I agree, there is some, is that Stroud has had to be like the engine of this offense, and I think he has to learn that sometimes you just have to be safe. I brought up don't make a bad play worse. That is something that he just keeps doing. And I was looking at some stats. So this is just the last couple of years, or this is since Stroud was starting. He's 8th in explosive passes since he's took over, or since he was a rookie. So the last 3 years, explosive pass rate, I should say. He's 6th in throws that went 10 or more air yards. So this guy's chucking it. 20th in EPA, 11th in interception percentage. He is just a guy that has just been pressing to push the ball. I get that checkdowns haven't really worked in this offense because it wasn't like the running backs were doing much. But there's also times where it's like you have to get to there. You have to get to the safe throw. You have to get to the throwaways. So it's like I appreciate that aggression, but this is where it needs to rein back in and bring it back in. He has yet to have a coach, I think, that knows to even say that to him, because it's just like, yeah, just keep going. Just keep hitting the button. Why isn't the button working? This used to work for Tom Brady. This button used to work for Matthew Stafford. God, why isn't it working for the 24-year-old? Like, that's what it feels like to me when I watch it. And then since 2023, the Texans ranked 31st in running back rushing success rate in the NFL, 23rd in explosive runs, 31st in EPA per run, 28th in stuff rate, which is gains of 0 yards or TFLs, 30th in average distance to go on third down, 7.4 yards since he was in, 30th in yak rate, 17th in EPA per dropback, so middle of the pack. So he's kind of, in these situations, he has made the most of it, but now he's got to learn to sometimes that he doesn't have to be all that. And I know we just talked about, the offenses are great, the run game's not great, But I'm saying this because the defense was a beast this year. It's not just what the offense is, it's your team, especially if you want to make a run in the playoffs. It doesn't matter if you throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in the playoffs. Just score one more point than the other team and don't turn the ball over. Like, that's what it is being like a quarterback in the playoffs sometimes. Yeah, and 2-minute drills, be a god and go do it. But sometimes on these other drives, just ride the bike. Just be the driver. That's all you have to do. Just kind of, be the bus driver. Just get us to our stop and we'll be okay. And I think there's just a little disconnect there of what they want from him. And I don't think this staff, I have yet to hear anything through the grapevine about, like, this guy's really smart. Like, wait till you see what he does with the quarterback room. It's more just like, yeah, these guys been on some staffs. And that's not what Stroud needs. Stroud really, they almost want to get, like, can Norv Turner come out of retirement? Somebody that's like, can just really, like, hey, calm him down and kind of get him, like, hey, to see the game in a different way than I think he's seeing it right now. Because he's smart. He sees things that the top guys do, and he's aggressive, and he can throw from tight platforms. That's why I'm not going to quit him. Like, I do think he's still extension worthy. I know that's crazy to say right now. Everyone's like making jokes. Oh, he cost himself so much money. You think Texans going to move on from him? But no way.
No.
But the free, okay. But anyways, getting into maybe with the offseason stuff too for this team, free agents, Christian Kirk, they have Jalen Knoll, Sean Rankins, Danico Autry, and Ed Ingram. Ed Ingram played better this year, but that's because last year he was the worst guard in the NFL. So being below average was improvement for him. But they need to address the lines. D-tackle, offensive guard, maybe your long-term right tackle, center. They just need to continue to inject on that. Maybe get another running back in there. Woody Marks was a fine player, but they need even more juice in that room. We're in agreement on him, but it feels every time I say it, it's so hard to say. It's like, I see the stat lines. I see the plays, guys. He's okay. He's fine. Yeah, I'll put it at that. Pretty good production.
Dude, you read off all the stats. They're 31st in rushing success rate since Stroud got drafted. Like and obviously your run game's more than your running back, but again, it's no half measures for fixing this. Like, you you can't just be like, all right, we'll run it back with Woody Marks again. I think he could be a nice complimentary piece, but you can do better.
Yeah, he should be your 2. Or at least a 50-50 split. Like, it should be a split backfield. And I love Nick Chubb and what he did when he was in his prime. Nick Chubb isn't a role player back. He's the guy or he's nothing. You know what I mean? Like, he has to be the main driver, take him out on passing downs because he's not great in protection. But now when you have that and you're a role player, like, okay, we can't really find him. Like, those aren't like the best fit as far as team building and everything. But so the defense is still going to be great next year. I know defense is not as sticky as offense. People like to say that, but there's a lot of starters returning. I think they can improve defensive tackle a little bit as far as a long-term guy, but offense, and make sure Stroud's head is right. I still see the things there that some of the better starters do. I had him, in my top 10 rings before the season. He probably won't make it next year. But I do think this is a guy that will, like, he is extension worthy, but man, they just need stuff to help him out because you can tell it's tough situations. And I think he presses and makes them worse.
Yeah. I wouldn't sign him to an extension right now.
Not right now.
I'd let it play out this. No. Yeah, I'd let it play out this year. Yeah. But yeah, that's what I think. Okay, that makes sense. I think down the line.
That's what I mean. I'm not saying it right now. I'm saying,
yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I'd say in 9 months from now, they if he's having a good half season.
You don't need to do anything at quarterback this year. You just figure it out and see what happens with him this year. But you just got to get that right. You got to get the offensive line up to quality. I think you got to empower the young receivers and like DeMeco Ryans, get a offensive coaching hire right. Get that right. And like, again, this is my point about these coaches. Like, I don't give a shit that DeMeco Ryans' defense is good. I mean, obviously I care that the defense is good, but that doesn't,
you're the head
you've
coach.
You've done your job. Like, no, the job is to make the whole football team good. And he seems to know that too. So it's the same thing that I think we said on Sunday. The players and the coaches are accountable. We can also say the same thing on the outside here, where like he gave the defense to Matt Burke to call the plays at some point this year to take more investment in the offense. Whether that worked or not is a separate conversation, but I think he knows it needs to happen.
Yeah, it's my mentor is Paul Chris. That's what he said. He goes, you're the head ball coach. Like, people think, oh, I'm this coach, I'm that coach. You're a football coach. and you should learn it. It stuck with me because that's why I like geeking out about line play and defensive stuff too, outside of just quarterback stuff. And I think too, it's like, I would ask D'Amico, this one I would close on, who gives you issues? Who makes it tough on you? Hire them.
Yeah.
Like that, or at least hire an assistant from them. Like, yeah, right. He probably thinks everyone sucks. So he's just like, yeah, they all suck.
Keyshawn Booty gives us trouble. Keyshawn Booty's the only person who gives the Texans defense trouble.
The Timberwolves, my basketball team, they used to, when Kevin McHale was the GM, he would always sign the guy that gave them issues. So he would always give whoever like torched the Timberwolves the previous year. Trent Baalke did this actually with the Jazz.
I was going to say, this is Trent
whoever
Baalke
torched their team, that's who he signed. That's why he signed Christian Kirk. It's whoever torched their team, that's who he was signing, because that's the extent of their scouting. Okay, let's get to where D'Amico Ryans came from. The San Francisco 49ers, who had, I mean, by all accounts, did all they could this year with all the injuries they had, but they are a very curious team because of those injuries. Now losing a defense coordinator, Robert Saleh. Figure out the receiver position. We joked about this on Sunday night, but with the 49ers, Matt, postmortem, kind of thoughts on them. What do you think they need to address? How you feeling about them? San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, I'm really curious how you feel about this one, because I actually think I don't know if I feel worse about the Niners than I did on Saturday, but the more I've thought about it, the more I'm concerned about, or the more, let me say this. I think this is,
I think
this is a bigger off season than maybe it's being discussed as, because I think, and look, I feel this way when they lost the game on Saturday. I was like, okay, you can leave this season feeling fine about that. You got destroyed by the Seahawks. The Seahawks are the best team in the league, but you were banged up. You just ran out of rope, I think was what I said. You ran out. You drove the car all the way to E, this very banged up team. My problem is, though, number one, you're losing Robert Saleh. That's a big deal. And you're gonna get Nick Bosa and Fred Warner back healthy, theoretically, but like that's great. That's gonna help the defense. But you are losing the guy that just made chicken salad out of you know what, right? Like that's a problem. And then offensively, other than Brock Purdy, like who are the guys we're counting on this team next year?
Right.
I love Ricky Pearsall. I love Ricky Pearsall. I'm a huge Ricky Pearsall fan, but obviously I would say can't really count on him based on the way this season went last year. You're hoping like, okay, he plays 17 games next season and he breaks out and he's awesome. I think that's totally possible. Just tough to set your watch to it after what happened this year. Juwan Jennings, I would guess, is moving on in free agency. George Kittle tore his Achilles like a week ago, guys, and he's 33 years old in October.
Yes.
That's like, is he going to be available in September? Probably not. Is he going to be George Kittle at any point next year? Probably not. No. And Christian McCaffrey had 480 opportunities this year. That's targets plus receptions. That is the fourth most for a running back since the year 2000. It's tied with Arian Foster for the fourth most for among a running back, and that's regular season and playoffs combined. Yeah. And don't look at what happens to the guys the year after they have those like 400.
I was hoping you had that stat.
I don't have I have the players. I haven't like looked deep into this in terms of like, okay, this is how much their efficiency drops off or whatever. But just I can rifle off some of the names here real quick. Number one is DeMarco Murray, 506 for the 2014 Cowboys.
Died after that.
Nope. Saquon Barkley last year for the Eagles Super Bowl run. Obviously, I don't think he was the main culprit of what was wrong with the Eagles run game, but I don't think it totally helped.
He dropped off.
Eddie George in 2000 had 489. Arian Foster for the 2012 Texans had 480, just like Christian McCaffrey did. He dropped off. He had a bunch of injuries the next year. Larry Johnson, 2006, Kansas City Chiefs, 475.
Yes.
Didn't go well for him the next year. Edgerrin James, year 2000, 474 for the Colts. I believe he tore his ACL the season after that. Yeah, so it's just like, it's a lot of guys that it didn't go well the next season once you get up to those like 470 opportunities, and obviously he does a lot of stuff in the in the pass game, which I think he can continue to do. But even McCaffrey's rushing efficiency stuff dropped off next year. I think it would be flat out, and I'm not saying like McCaffrey's done or he's going to be done next year or anything like that, but I think it would be flat out irresponsible to do what they've done with him whenever he's been healthy next season, which is just talk about press the easy button. Just, I get it. He makes your offense and your play sheet come alive if you're Kyle Shanahan. Let's let him do that as a receiver and get somebody else in here to do that grinder rushing stuff. Trent Williams is 38 years old next season. Probably time to start thinking about the future there. And again, they just have nothing at wide receiver beyond Ricky Pearsall, who's an awesome, talented player, but is coming off of an injury plagued season. So it's just, there's a lot more to do than you would think for the San Francisco 49ers.
I kind of, when I got my notes together, 49ers postmortem, I was like, okay, we kind of carried over what we talked about Sunday. All right, figure out the receiver position. I was like, all right, they're actually, there's a lot more question marks there than maybe I even kind of like assumed on Sunday. I was like, yeah, Juwan Jennings, who weighs a big staple of this offense now. All right, he's going to get money. Ricky Pearsall, like you said, can't really trust him. Just injury wise, just how he has shown. Not the biggest guy either. That's another thing too. He's 190-ish, but I know it's splitting hairs. I know I'm the guy that's all about size, but that's a thing.
I get it. Yeah.
I'm always going to bring it up.
But also just real quick on Pearsall too. I think the way they used him this year was a little bizarre too, because I kind of imagined him as, all right, we're going to spread it out a little more and he's going to be like a slot flanker type for them. But he was almost always outside on the line of scrimmage, I think, because that's he was an X and kind of like their vertical guy, which is why even when he was healthy, sometimes he would just disappear from games because he's running like the Nico Collins route tree in this offense, which is not quite the role I figured he would be. And obviously you think Brandon Ayuk was going to come back and be that, and Brandon Ayuk ain't going to be on the 2026 San Francisco 49ers.
No, then they say they haven't even heard from him. It's like haven't heard from him for a couple months. Yeah, I'm sure he's gonna be on this roster next year. No, it's we kind of got to the same wavelength on this. I'm looking up Christian McCaffrey's speed numbers because I was curious about this too. But yeah, I wrote the same thing. Took over 400 touches this year, and they were hard touches. The O-line was getting. This was the worst or most inconsistent. I hate saying worst because it did rally, but it was the most inconsistent run game that Shanahan has had, at least in San Fran. Maybe the first year, I think, in 2017 when they got there, before they kind of pieced everything together. And so McCaffrey, credit to him for staying healthy. And I know this guy works so hard and is one of the hardest training guys, is always on top of stuff. Listen to him talking about his dad, because his dad was the same way.
He called it the hardest year of my life. He said it was one of the hardest years of my life because of how much he had to rehab and like work really hard to get to play a full season this year.
God, it's hard. And he's turning 30. And I know it's like, oh, he's just 30 years old. 30 at running back is a scary cliff to come up to. You were talking about cliff with this team. Yeah. That's a sorry to keep cliff.
Cutting you off too, but like part of the quote that he said was like, it was hard on my wife this past year, because of how much he was just away from the facility and like training and all this stuff, or away from family and like training and all that. And I think they had a kid this year too. That's a guy that's like not just thinking about, oh man, do I want to be doing this again next year? I don't know. That's just those like were turning a little like gears in my head hearing that. Yeah, right.
I everything you hit on is what I was going to hit on. I said they need to be healthy, and again, that's like, oh yeah, we can sometimes just assume, oh, they're going to have health luck. Well, one, this team never has health luck because it's just who the guys they go after. That like they have a history of injuries. Kittle's another year older, coming off an Achilles, and a guy that thrives on explosion. So that's Achilles are Achilles, man. Like that is by default a 10% stat devaluer, like speed, explosiveness. Yeah, these guys are freaks. Kittle's going to train his butt off. Don't get me wrong. I get all that, but physics are physics. Father time is father time. Like this is just math, I guess, however you want to put it. Like this is just inevitable, especially within Achilles, especially at that age. Trent Williams is older. I think everybody, including myself, has mocked a left tackle to the 49ers, not just this draft, but last year's draft, a bunch of drafts, because of just like, hey, you guys need a succession plan at some point. I mean, they re-signed the right tackle. He's a nothing. Pooney's been out there. He's been fine at guard, but they need O-line. Fred Warner's a year older. Fred Warner's not the biggest guy either, and he plays a very physical style. So it might be just this is what happens now. CMC is the driver of this offense. I mean, he was getting MVP talk for a minute, and just this season he was. And I finally looked it up, but just the 3 years that he's been with the 49ers, yeah, I think it's been 3 seasons now, but I just looked up the last 3 years. His average speed has dropped off as a ball carrier. In 2023, his average speed as a ball carrier is 12.95 miles an hour. Last year is 13.05. This year is 12.6. Seems like it's splitting hairs. That's almost a half mile an hour. That's significantly slower in kind of this discussion. Carries of where you traveled 15 miles an hour or more, so like a full good run. 2 years ago, it was 22% of his runs. He hit 15 miles an hour or more. This year is 16%. So 6% drop off. I think 20% is kind of going to be one of the top guys. 16% is kind of a middle tier running back. He never touched 20 miles an hour this year. And 2 years ago, he hit it a couple times. And overall, they didn't have a lot of guys that had that speed. They had injuries, so that's why it's hard to say that. But CMC, though, he's about to be a 30-year-old running back with a lot of touches. Usually, historically, that has shown fade. If you're always just talking about fantasy terms, but just even real life terms. You brought up the Arian Foster year, who 2012, his coordinator was not Shanahan anymore because I think he was in Cleveland then. I could be wrong. No, he was in Washington then. RG3 year. So he has the 351 carries. You had over 400 touches. The next year, he only played 8 games and he had 120 carries. And then the year after that, he kind of came back, and then he played 13 games, and then basically his career was done after that. And that was at 26-year-old. He took those touches. I don't know. It's hard. I respect Kyle Shanahan as much as anybody in football, period. And he gets the most out of whatever he's got. And he has shown that time and time again. It's just they have more questions than even I assumed 2 nights ago. And even just maybe I think some other people are assuming that they'll get right back. They'll be competitive. They'll put together a good offense in some way, shape, or form. Oh, yeah. But a lot of their key cogs have more questions with them than you would maybe just assume at first glance.
The way I would frame it, and the way I framed it in the article that I wrote is, as long as they have Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy too. Like, I think Purdy deserves to be discussed as one of those guys. So, like, as long as they have those two, they will be a good team. They will not fall off the face of the earth. But the way I had framed it was, it is time to officially turn the page. Because I think they've slowly been turning the page from the team that was, one of the most dominant teams of this little stretch here the last 5 years. And now, though, I think with Kittle and this injury, Williams at this point in his career seems like it's time to kind of, again, those guys can be around, but it's time to start thinking about who your next era of players are. That's really the big thing here, which, by the way, we brought up the Mac Jones thing. That's why it's like, you got to trade Mac Jones. You get a 3rd round pick for him. You might need that 3rd round pick to contribute, like a cheap, talented young player in the trenches or at skill position, like a grinder running back, some depth receiver. You're going to need that guy.
Yeah, and pick wise, they have a couple 4th round comps, and they have nothing. I think did they get something for Saleh as
no? I don't think
hiring?
he was there long enough. I don't think he was there. I think you have to be there a certain amount of time.
Don't get that. That was kind of one of Shanahan's money balls, I guess. But no, I do think that. It's a curious team that just has more questions because it's just like you say, they have to turn the page a little bit. I think their hands can force that they have to turn it because it's hard to just go, oh yeah, we're moving on from McCaffrey. It's like, are you? Is that something going to have to force you to do that? I'm not saying move on from McCaffrey, but even guys like moving on to succession plans at all these spots they need. Need D tackles, need offensive line. They need help stopping the run. They need a new D coordinator. Yeah, it's 49ers are a very, very, very curious team. And Kyle Shanahan has shown that he can get aggressive and do some things. So who knows, like, kind of what happens with this team. All right, we were going to touch on some of the other teams, but it was fun talking about those teams, and we went long. It was great. But yeah, sorry, Panthers, Packers, Jags, Eagles, Chargers, Steelers. We did talk about you guys a little bit after the wild card round. I'm sure we'll talk plenty about you guys. Panthers, defensive help. What else do you need? Packers, defensive help, O-line, find a D coordinator. It's going to be Raheem Morris. It's going to be who are we kidding? Jags, we talked about trenches. Eagles, need an OC. Brian Dable will be a great theater, or Jim Bob Cooter, or whoever you guys want. Chargers. I did want to talk about the Chargers with you. They interviewed Arthur Smith. What'd you think about that? Arthur Smith and Justin Herbert.
I was going to say,
I know I'm more excited probably than you are because you're shaking your head already.
if we did this segment, my thought was going to be, I'm ready to be like let down by the Chargers offensive coordinator hire. I don't. I don't think that.
I was like, I kind of got a little giddy thinking about that. I might have been the only one.
Yeah, I don't think Arthur Smith is as bad as some people think, which everybody thinks he's like the stone worst. So that's not saying that much. And he would fit kind of the identity that they want to go for there. It's just like, I know, kind of the same. It's just kind of the same thing. What we just did, right? I mean, I don't know.
He's Greg Roman that's updated his playbook a little bit. Like that's really what the appeal of Arthur
He's Greg
Smith.
Roman who can get more out of your like tight end 3. Sick.
Yeah, right. I don't know. It got me because it was like, okay, that's not the worst fit, but it is kind of more of the same. No, I was actually curious though, because Dwayne Ledford, his O-line coach in Atlanta, got let go because of Callahan coming in, and he's a good coach. And that he came in with Arthur Smith, I believe, when he was in Atlanta. He was like the Louisville line coach and stuff. But anyways, if he's a free agent, like Arthur Smith and Ledford coming in, it could be worse. It could be much worse, I think in LA, but I don't know. I don't hate that, especially for what they do identity wise. I don't know. They might be forced to play a few more receivers than he's ever been comfortable with, but who knows? Herbert would actually be a great fit in that offense. So I just had to bring that up. Any of these other teams get you? I know Stone's like, no. Any of these other things, you have a one-off thought? Any of those teams that I just listed off? I think the Steelers was the other one. Also, they're interviewing Mike McCarthy again, which is because like Yinzers, man. You got to know the Whitfield. You got to know Western PA, man. Yeah. You got to recruit Western PA. Anyone at Pitt will tell you.
Did I say this to you on the show, or did I say it off air that like I don't need to know where? I think it was on Twitter actually. I don't need to know where anybody was born, where they lived, or where they went to school when we're talking about their head coaching, outlook. That's even more annoying than are they buddies with the quarterback? Like, yeah, Mike McCarthy's from Pittsburgh. Whoop-de-doo. He's a big Pittsburgh Steelers fan growing up. Congratulations.
Brian Daboll's from Western New York. Bring him home. He's comfortable with the area. He just coached there a couple years ago. We know. You guys already sold us this bill of goods before.
I truly don't care. Yeah, actually, that would be pretty depressing if in this moment for Pittsburgh, it's like, all right, we're finally turning the page. We're going to move on. We're going to rebuild. And actually, it's going to be Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers back for another year, because I saw Connor Hughes put this out, covers the Jets, that one of his last conversations with Rodgers was, where am I going next? Wherever Mike McCarthy's coaching. So
yep, I know. I couldn't believe it. I was like, Steelers fans just be like, no. It started so good too. They interviewed the Rams guys, Shieldhouse, Shua, and I'm like, okay, there we go. There's the 30-year-old off the wall. They're going to start new. Okay, this is a new page. And then all of a sudden it's like, McCarthy. It's like, what? Like, because like Flores is kind of the middle ground. It's like, okay, he has the experience there, combative personality and everything, but at least he's younger. He has some aggressive ideas and it kind of be a new thing. But man, the McCarthy one was a little tough to kind of like swallow from there. I also don't need to know.
Also, did you like how McCarthy apparently resigned? He pulled himself out of he pulled himself out of the Titans head coach. Nobody pulls themselves out of. That was a report from Tom Pelissero, which. Okay. He apparently he pulled himself out of the Titans job right before it went to Robert Saleh, just like he pulled himself out of the Saints job right before it went to Kellen Moore. Nobody pulls themselves out of the running of a job they're not about to get more than Mike McCarthy.
So good. Yeah. I have that, but it's just at home, what do you say, like the kids at Lies in elementary school. Yeah, I have a girlfriend, but she goes to a different school.
My girlfriend's at another school.
Yeah, that's McCarthy. I have a job, but it's just in a different division. That I also don't need to know. You're talking about where reporting where these coaches are from, where they went to high school and everything. I don't need to know how long the interviews were. Everyone just wants to make it out like 3-hour interview. Like all of a sudden, like how long the interview matters. Don't you think your process, you should know a lot about these guys before the interview? And then that the length of the interview shouldn't matter. That should just be the capper of like, okay, this guy's not a psychopath. But even if you get into like, oh, this guy's a psychopath, all the reports, Kurt Cignetti for the Indiana coach who just won a national championship, Fernando Mendoza, is probably going to be QB1. I wonder who had him as QB1 last May. But Cignetti, they did like all these puff pieces about him this week. And people are like, how do we miss him? How do we miss him? And someone goes, you got to understand about him. When you interview Cignetti and you're one-on-one at a table, he's kind of like a serial killer. And it's a little disarming. that killed me. It was like, yeah, that would be a little disarming. That would be a little scary and stuff. But that's the thing. It's like, that's why you got to look at the resume and look at what they do on the field, as opposed to maybe those little meetings, and maybe won't get swayed by a guy. I don't know, or impress the brass that includes the guy that you just worked with 2 weeks ago. No, but I don't need to know 3-hour meetings, 4-hour meetings, all that stuff. I feel like the process should already get you to that point. And that should just be a get to know you dinner, as opposed to like, this really sold them, yada yada. But sorry, that's just me. All right, Matt, thank you for joining me, man. This was fun. Another 100-minute doozy for a Tuesday, the short show of the week. Or these Tuesday shows are becoming behemoths. But we're closing it out today. Yeah, I know. I'll be back on Thursday with Chuck to preview the championship weekend. We're down to the Final Four. It's crazy. 2 games on Sunday. No more college football. Then we got All-Star game season, Super Bowl, draft season. We're ripping and roaring. It's going to be a lot of fun the next couple of weeks. I'm Nate Tice. You can find me at Nate_Tice. That's Matt Harmon. You can find him at Matt Harmon_BYB. Check out the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast. What are you guys doing this week? Unless you don't have something. No, you did. If you can't tell, I was jealous of the Dynasty show you did with Booney.
I know. Yeah. Well, we've got another one coming up. So if people want to get in on that, I'm going to send out the call today for more questions for the Dynasty debates.
Okay. I've been kicking myself in one league. I took Mason Taylor over Harold Fannin, and I think about it to this day.
God.
I didn't really need him, but I just think about it. Why? I knew the situation. The Jets don't get. Anyways, make sure you check out Matt's stuff, everything he does with Dynasty stuff, all great stuff, and all his articles on the site as well. Check it out on Yahoo. Subscribe to us. Follow us, rate us 5 stars wherever you get your podcasts. Watch us on YouTube as well, the Yahoo Sports YouTube channel. Make sure to like and subscribe there. That's where you can check out our live shows as well. We will do that Sunday night after the conference championship game. So check us out there. Thanks to Stone, Awesome, Massive behind the scenes for making us look and sound good. Thank you all for listening. See you guys next time.